Hey there guys, Goobity Eric here from the Action Toys channel. I'm just finding something I can listen to while we play Conan Exiles. We're going to the PvP server today, building up on that, then we'll probably end up on the Madhouse server for a little while. Pick one.
The massive council station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal ring. It spun slowly around the peaceful planet of Kepler Prime, casting long shadows across the world below. Inside the station, beings from 12 different worlds had gathered for their monthly meeting. The air hummed with different voices speaking in various languages, all translated by the station's computers. Speaker Vex the great chamber.
All right. We got this, guys.
Like all swords, he was
put
tall
some of my
and
pain
walked on
salve
two
on my
legs,
joints.
but his head looked like that of an ancient earth lizard. His yellow eyes scanned the room as he tried to keep order among the different species.
Please read the official server
The Zephyrians
rules.
sat in one section, their bodies looking like they were made of living crystal.
Alright, controller, because I don't like not using controller for Conan Exiles.
And worried. Side wanted to listen. Other species filled the remaining seats. The Etherians looked like tall, thin humans, but with pale blue skin and large black eyes. And for silence. Disputes happened regularly when different worlds wanted the same resources. Usually they could work out some kind of compromise or sharing agreement. The Thalassian representative, Murdercoda, sang out in her musical voice. Perhaps we could establish joint mining operations. Both species could benefit from shared resources and knowledge. Her suggestion made sense. But pride often prevented such simple solutions. Just as Vexhari prepared to call for a vote on them. The Thalassian proposal, a loud alarm echoed.
I need you for my house, woman!
All conversation stopped. The various beings looked around in confusion as red warning lights began flashing along the walls. The communication officer ran into the chamber. The young Saurid's scales were bright green with excitement and worry. Speaker Vexhari, we have an urgent situation. 2 ships are approaching the station at high speed. They're requesting immediate council audience under emergency.
She's mine now.
Vexhari's yellow eyes narrowed. The emergency contact protocol had not been used in over 50 years. It was reserved for threats to galactic security or major diplomatic crises. What species are these ships from? He asked. The communication? Officer checked his data pad. The scales turned a darker shade of green, which meant he was nervous. They're human vessels, Speaker. From the planet Earth and the Sol system, a wave of uncomfortable murmurs swept through the chamber. Several representatives shifted in their seats. Others made worried sounds in their native languages, the Zephyrians. Crystal bodies grew even dimmer. While the Classics clicked their mandibles in what sounded like distress, humans were still new to galactic politics. Their home world, Earth, was classified as a Class 12 death world. This meant it was one of the most dangerous planets known to support intelligent life, as council members had never seen a human in person. But they had all heard the stories. Earth was a world of constant natural disasters. Earthquakes shook the ground without warning. Storms with winds fast enough to destroy buildings happened regularly. The planet had active volcanoes that could bury entire regions in ash and lava. Wild animals hunted and killed each other in brutal ways. Even the plants could be deadly, with some producing poisons that could kill other species with just a small amount. Despite all these dangers, humans had not only survived, but had become the dominant species on their world. Had learned to fight back against nature itself. Stories told of humans who could survive in conditions that would kill most other beings within minutes. They were said to heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. Some tales claimed they could function normally even when hurt or sick. Deathworlders, whispered Representative Nelthic of the Covenant Union. His blue-gray skin turned pale at the thought. The Covenant Union came from a peaceful world with calm weather and gentle animals. The idea of beings who lived on a world trying to kill them every day was terrifying to his people. Vexhari considered the situation carefully. Humans had been granted basic recognition by the Council 2 years ago. but they were still considered a minor species. They had only a few small colonies and limited technology compared to the major galactic powers. However, the emergency contact protocol could not be ignored. What is the nature of their emergency? Vexari asked the communication officer. The young Sorad checked his datapad again. They claim to have detected hostile alien activity in the Sigma Quadrant. They say multiple colony worlds have been attacked by unknown forces. This announcement caused even more concern among the council members. The Sigma Quadrant had been off limits for decades due to dangerous space conditions. Strange energy fields and unstable wormholes made travel there extremely risky. No one was supposed to be. Operating in that region? Impossible, declared Thelanex, the ambassador from the Covenant Union. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had been in galactic
I just need a
politics
little
for
bit
many
of
years.
arrows.
The
Oh, I
Sigma
thought I saw
Quadrant
something there.
is restricted space. No colonies exist there in our long range. Sensors show no activity. Perhaps the humans are mistaken, suggested the Etherian representative in her quiet voice. Their sensor technology is still primitive compared to ours. They may have detected natural phenomena and misidentified it as hostile activity. The Nexus Collective representative's red lights blinked faster as it processed information. Human. Reliability and threat assessment is unknown quantity. Their death world origins may cause them to perceive danger where none exists. Vexari raised his hand for silence again. The decision was difficult. Going with humans into the council chamber would make many representatives uncomfortable. The reputation as dangerous beings from a deadly world preceded them. However, the emergency contact protocol was sacred law that had protected the galaxy for centuries. We will hear what the humans have to say, Vexari announced. Prepare the chamber for their arrival. All security protocols will remain in effect. As the council prepared to meet the
I like
Death
that.
Worlders,
That's good.
none of them could have predicted how much their galaxy was about to change. The docking bay shook slightly as the two human ships connected to the station. Through the observation windows, council members could see the vessels clearly. The ships looked different from anything else in the galactic fleet. Where most species built their ships with smooth curves and elegant designs, the human vessels appeared rough and practical. Dark metal plates covered their hulls, and weapon systems jutted out from various points like the spines of some dangerous creature. Captain Jake Morrison stepped out of the first ship, followed closely by Commander Lisa Hayes from the second vessel. The moment they entered the station's corridors, their presence changed everything around them. Both humans wore dark blue, uniforms with various patches and insignia that meant
I like
nothing
these.
to
I'll
the
take
alien
these.
species watching them. Jake stood just over 6.
Ooh, that'll give me carrying
feet tall
capacity.
with broad shoulders
I like
and
that.
arms that showed
Everybody
years
likes
of
extra
physical
carrying
training.
capacity.
Scars crossed his hands, and one ran along his left jaw. His dark hair was cut short in military style, and his brown eyes moved constantly, checking every corner and exit. He walked with the confident stride of someone who had faced danger many times and survived. Lisa was slightly shorter but carried herself with equal confidence.
Oh,
Her red
I
hair
need
was
you.
pulled back into a neat style, and her green eyes showed the sharp intelligence of someone trained in both combat and diplomacy. She wore the same uniform as Jake, but with different patches that marked her as a diplomatic officer, as well as a military commander. The station's corridors had never felt so tense. As the two humans walked toward the council chamber, other beings pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass. The Zephyrians' crystal bodies grew so dim they almost became
We got them on.
transparent.
Yes.
Several klaxons made nervous clicking sounds and backed away when the humans came near. A group of thalassans in their water suits moved to the far side of the corridor. Even through their environmental suits, their fish-like features showed obvious fear. One of them sang a low, worried song. That their translators turned into something like a prayer for safety? Jake noticed the reactions, but kept walking. He had expected this response. Every species they had encountered since humanity joined the galactic community reacted the same way. Humans were the monsters from the Death World, the beings who survived where others would die. Most aliens saw them as barely
I'm gonna have
controlled
to build another one
predators.
of those little
Lisa walked beside
slave
him,
thingies in
diplomatic training helping her maintain a calm expression, despite the obvious fear around them. She had dealt with worse reactions than this during her years as humanity's representative to various alien governments.
What's that, guys? I'm gonna get my
Some
dog.
species had refused to meet with humans at all, frightened by stories of their violent nature. The council chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. As Jake and Lisa entered, the effect on the assembled representatives was immediate and dramatic. Several beings actually moved their chairs backward. Others made sounds of distress in their native languages. The Etherian representative's large, black eyes grew even wider as she stared at the humans. Speaker Vexhari stood at his podium, trying to maintain his composure. Even his trained diplomatic skills could not completely hide his nervousness. His yellow eyes tracked the humans' movements as they walked to the center of the chamber. His scaled hands gripped the podium's edges tightly. Representatives of the human species, Vexhari announced in his formal voice, you have requested emergency audience with this council. State your names and credentials for the record. Jake stepped forward slightly. His movement was smooth and controlled, but several council members flinched anyway. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Defiant. I represent the Earth Defense Force and carry full diplomatic authority from the human colonial government. Lisa moved to stand beside
Woodstone, iron.
I am Commander Lisa Hayes of the United Earthship Liberty. I serve as both military officer and diplomatic liaison for humanity's external affairs. The formal introductions did little to ease the tension in the room. If anything, knowing that these were military officers made some representatives even more nervous. The Robotic Nexus Collective members' red lights blinked faster as he processed threat assessments. You have claimed detection of hostile activity in the Sigma Quadrant, Vexhari continued. Present your evidence and explain why this requires emergency council attention. Lisa activated a small device that projected a three-dimensional map. In the center of the chamber, the holographic display showed the Sigma Quadrant with several points marked in red. 18 days ago, our long-range monitoring stations detected distress signals from this region. The signals came from 3 different locations, each corresponding to known colony worlds of council member species. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Representative Thelenex of the Covenant Union stood up, his blue-gray skin flushed with anger. This is impossible. Sigma Quadrant has been restricted for good reason. No colonies exist in that region. With respect, Ambassador Thelenex, Lisa replied calmly. Our records show mining operations and research stations that were established before the restrictions went into effect. These facilities were supposed to be evacuated, but our intelligence suggests some remained active. Jake stepped forward and activated another section of the holographic display. Energy readings and sensor data filled the air above them. Distress signals were followed by massive energy discharges. The type of power we detected could only come from weapons designed to destroy entire planetary surfaces. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The Zephyrian representative Zilthara stood up so quickly that her crystal body flashed with bright light. You accuse unknown forces of planetary destruction without proof. How do we know this information is accurate? Because we went to investigate, Jake said simply.
There we go.
His words carried the weight of someone who had seen terrible things firsthand. 3 days ago, my ship and Commander Hayes' vessel entered the Sigma Quadrant under emergency protocols. We found the remains of 3 worlds. The silence that followed was complete. Even the constant humming of the station's systems seemed quieter. Every being in the chamber stared at the 2 humans, trying to process what they had just heard. Lisa changed the holographic display to show recordings from their investigation. The images were horrifying. Where once there had been planets with cities and life, now only broken chunks of rock floated in space. The destruction was so complete that identifying the original worlds was almost impossible. The attack patterns show
I just have to
coordination
make it in there, right?
advanced weapons technology, Lisa explained, her voice remaining steady despite the terrible images. Whatever did this use weapons that could crack a planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. Energy signatures don't match any known galactic species. Representative Kexanala of the Nexus Collective processed the data quickly. His robotic voice carried a note of concern that his kind rarely showed. Sensor readings indicate weapons technology beyond current galactic capabilities. Estimated power requirements would exceed output of most star systems. The Thalassian representative Murdercoda sang a low,
Okay,
mournful
I only
song.
have to get into the front
Her
end of
musical
that
voice
thing, right?
expressed
So I
the
don't have to do
horror that
anything
many in the chamber
massive.
felt. If this is true, then some force has committed genocide on a scale we have never seen. 3 entire worlds destroyed. But not everyone was convinced. Ambassador Thelanek's eyes narrowed as he studied the humans. How convenient that only humans detected these attacks. How do we know you didn't cause this destruction yourselves? Your species comes from a world of violence and destruction. Perhaps you seek to frighten us into giving you military power. Jake's jaw clenched at the accusation. His brown eyes grew hard as he stared at the Covenant Union representative. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Other council members shifted nervously, sensing the dangerous change in the humans' mood. Are you accusing humanity of genocide? Jake asked. His voice was quiet, but carried a threat that made several beings back away from him. Lisa placed a hand on Jake's arm. A gesture that looked casual, but was actually a warning to stay calm. Ambassador Thelanex raises valid concerns about verification, she said diplomatically. We understand that our evidence may seem insufficient. That's why we're here asking for council support to investigate further. The Etherean representative spoke for the first time, a quiet voice somehow carrying throughout the chamber. The humans request investigation, not immediate military action. This suggests they seek truth.
Your heart will be eaten.
But Thelanix was not satisfied. He stood taller, his confidence growing as he spoke. Or perhaps they seek to draw us into their death world mentality. Humans see threats everywhere because they live in constant danger. They may genuinely believe this threat exists when it does. Not. The insult was clear to everyone in the chamber. Jake took a step forward, his hands clenching into fists. The movement was small, but every alien in the room felt it like a physical blow. Their instincts screamed warnings about the predator in their midst. You think we're making this up? Jake's voice carried the controlled anger of a professional soldier. You think we destroyed 3 worlds just to get your attention? Attention? And the chamber became almost unbearable. Representatives cowered in their seats as they watched the humans' barely controlled rage. This was what they had always feared about Death Worlders. Their capacity for violence was always just beneath the suit. The council chamber had become a battlefield of words and accusations. Representatives from different species shouted over each other while translators struggled to keep up with the flood of angry voices. The careful dignity that usually marked galactic diplomacy had completely disappeared. Speaker Vexari struck his gavel again and again, the sound echoing through the chamber like gunshots. His yellow eyes darted between the various groups of arguing aliens, trying to find some way to restore order. The green scales on his neck had darkened with stress, a clear sign that even his experienced leadership was being pushed beyond its limits. Ambassador Thelanex stood at his seat, pointing an accusing finger at Jake and Lisa. His blue-gray skin had turned almost purple with anger. These Death Worlders come to us with stories of destruction and death. This is what their kind brings wherever they go. Violence and chaos follow them like shadows. The Covenant Union representative's words sparked even more heated responses. Several other species began voicing their own concerns about human involvement in galactic affairs. The fear that had been building since the humans arrived now exploded into open hostility. Representatives Kalmora of the Etherean Council rose gracefully from her seat. Her pale blue skin seemed to glow softly in the chamber's light. The humans have been part of our community for only 2 years, she said in her quiet voice. In that time, there have been 3 border conflicts, trade disputes, and now claims of mysterious attacks. Perhaps the pattern is not coincidence. Jake felt his anger building like pressure in a sealed container. It was tense, and his hands had curled into fists at his sides. The accusations were not just wrong, they were insulting to every human who had been protecting others. His jaw clenched as he fought to control his response. Lisa noticed Jake's growing anger and moved slightly closer to him. Her green eyes flicked between him and the hostile crowd of aliens. She had seen Jake in combat situations before and knew the signs of his temper reaching its breaking point. Her diplomatic training told her to de-escalate the situation, but her own anger was also rising. The Klaxon representative, Vector, clicked his mandibles rapidly as he spoke. Human military expansion has been aggressive since first contact. They establish colonies faster than any other species and build weapons instead of peaceful infrastructure. This alleged threat may be excuse for more military buildup. That's completely false, Lisa said, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber quieted slightly as she spoke. Human colonies are established in unclaimed systems with full galactic approval. Our military forces are defensive in nature. They've never initiated hostilities against any council member species. But her words fell on deaf ears. The fear and suspicion that had been growing since humanity joined the galactic community was now pouring out like water from a broken dam. Years of worry about the dangerous Death Worlders had found a focus in this moment. Representative Zilthera of the Zephyrians stepped forward, her crystal body pulsing with nervousness. The evidence you present could be fabricated. It's primitive compared to ours, but it might be sufficient to create false sensor readings and holographic displays. Jake took a step forward, his brown eyes blazing with controlled fury. The movement was small, but every alien in the chamber felt it like a physical threat. Several representatives actually moved backward in their seats. Thousands in there. Water suits sang nervous songs that sounded like
have your soul.
You think we faked the destruction of 3 worlds? Jake's voice was low and dangerous. You think we killed millions of innocent beings just to play political games with you? You're robotic. Nexus Collective Representative Kexanala processed the emotional data from the humans with increasing concern. His red sensor lights blinked rapidly as he analyzed their stress levels and aggressive postures. Human physiological responses indicate extreme emotional distress. Threat assessment protocols suggest immediate caution. This clinical observation only made things worse.
There is a strange
Humans were being
scent
treated
on the
not just as
wind.
liars, but as dangerous animals that might attack anyone. The dehumanizing analysis sparked something primal in both Jake and Lisa. We are not animals, Lisa said sharply, her diplomatic mask finally cracking.
Whimper in terror.
We are intelligent beings trying to warn you of a real threat. The fact that you're more concerned with our emotional state than with the evidence we've presented shows exactly why this galaxy is in danger. Ambassador Thelenex sensed an opportunity to press his advantage. He stood taller, his confidence growing as he saw the humans losing their composure. This is exactly what I mean. Deathworlders cannot control their violent nature. Look at them, now ready to attack simply because we question their claims. The accusation was like throwing fuel on a fire. Jake's military training had taught him to face enemies who wanted to kill him, but he had never learned to deal with people who dismissed his warnings while millions of lives hung in the balance. His frustration boiled over. Want to see? Violent? Jake stepped forward again, his voice rising. You sit here in your safe council chamber, protected by treaties and laws, while something out there is turning entire worlds into debris fields. You're so afraid of us that you can't see the real monster coming to kill you all. The chamber erupted in panic. Several representatives leaped from their seats and moved toward the exits. The Zephyrians' crystal bodies flashed with alarm colors, while the Klaxons made loud clicking sounds that their translators couldn't interpret. Even the normally calm Thalassans were singing distress calls. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm, trying to pull him back from the edge of violence. Jake, stop. This isn't helping. Die! But Jake was beyond listening to reason. Months of frustration at being treated like a dangerous animal, combined with the knowledge that millions had already died while these politicians argued, it pushed him past his breaking point. You want to know what Deathworlders are really like? Jake shouted over the chaos. We're the ones who run towards danger while you run away from it. We're the ones who fight the monster so you can sleep safely at night when something comes. To destroy everything you've built, we're the ones who will die protecting you, even though you hate us for it. Speaker Vexhari was frantically calling for station security. The situation had gone far beyond a normal diplomatic dispute. These humans were displaying exactly the kind of dangerous behavior that everyone had feared. Their Deathworld nature was showing
will
itself
have your
in
soul.
full force. The Etherean representative had moved to the far side of the chamber. Her large black eyes widened at the top. This confirms everything we suspected. Humans are too dangerous to be part of civilized society. and should be contained to their own system before they threaten other species. Contained? Lisa's voice was ice cold with fury. Imprison an entire species because we're trying to save your lives. More security personnel began entering the chamber. They were mostly Saurids like Speaker Vexhari. There were also some members of other species. All of them kept their distance from the two humans, forming a loose circle but staying well out of reach. Jake looked around at the frightened faces surrounding him. Every alien in the chamber was staring at him like he was some kind of monster, ready to attack. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This was how they would always see humanity, not as protectors or allies, but as barely controlled predators. "This is pointless," Jake said, his voice suddenly quiet. The fight went out of him as he saw the fear in their eyes. "You're all going to die, and there's nothing we can do to save you if you won't let us try." The chamber fell silent, except for the sound of nervous breathing and the humming of the station systems. The two humans stood in the center of the room, surrounded by a galaxy that feared them more than any external threat. Ambassador Lennox seized the moment to deliver what he thought would be the final blow, perhaps he said with cold satisfaction. "The real threat to galactic peace is standing right here in this chamber. Perhaps it's time we discuss what to do about the human problem before it gets worse." The suggestion hung in the air like a death sentence. Several representatives nodded in agreement, while others looked uncertain. The idea of taking direct action against humanity was gaining support among council members who had been frightened by what they had just witnessed. Lisa felt something cold settle in her stomach. They had come here to warn of an external threat, but now humanity itself was being painted as the enemy. The very people they were trying to save were talking about destroying them instead. Jake's shoulders sagged with exhaustion and defeat. He had fought in wars, survived deadly missions, and faced impossible odds, but he had never felt as helpless as he did right now. The galaxy was in danger.
That's a
And
good
the only
story.
people who seemed to understand the threat were being treated as the enemy. Speaker Vexhari raised his gavel one final time. But before he could speak, the station's emergency alarms began blaring throughout. The chamber. Red warning lights flashed along the walls as a new voice came over the communication system. "All stations, we have multiple unknown contacts approaching the system. Large vessels of unknown configuration are dropping out of hyperspace. Around Kepler Prime, this is not a drill. The timing was so perfect that for a moment no one moved. Then asterisk, the emergency alarms continued to blare as every being in the council chamber froze in shock. The red warning lights cast an eerie glow over the assembled representatives, who just moments before had been arguing about whether humans were a threat to galactic peace. Now a real threat was approaching their location. Speaker Vexhari's scaled hands shook as he activated his communication panel. "Control Center reports status immediately," he ordered, his formal voice cracking with stress. Response came through speakers throughout the chamber, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Speaker, we have 15 large vessels of unknown design approaching from multiple vectors. They appeared without warning from hyperspace jumps. Ship configurations do not match any known species in our database." Jake and Lisa exchanged a quick glance. The look that passed between them carried years of military training and combat experience. In that instant, their earlier anger at the council disappeared, placed by the focused determination of soldiers facing an enemy. "Show us the tactical display," Lisa called out, her diplomatic training forgotten as her military instincts took. Over a large holographic screen materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the space around Kepler Prime. 15 dark shapes moved through the star system like predators stalking their prey. The vessels were unlike anything in the galactic database. They looked organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. Dark, twisted metal formed hull shapes that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Representative of the Zephyrians stared at the display with her crystal body flickering in terror. "What are those things?" "They look like something from a nightmare." The ships moved with purpose toward the council station. Their approach pattern showed clear tactical thinking. They were surrounding the station and cutting off escape routes rather than simply attacking directly. This was not random destruction. It was planned assault. Communication systems are being jammed, reported the control center. We cannot reach any of our defense fleets or send distress signals beyond the immediate system. Panic began spreading through the chamber like wildfire. Many representatives had never faced a real military threat before. The careful world of galactic diplomacy had protected them from the harsh realities of war and violence. Now that protection was crumbling around them. Ambassador Thelenex, who had been so confident just minutes before, was now pale with fear. His blue-gray skin had turned almost white as he stared at the approaching ships. This cannot be happening. The Council Station is neutral territory. No one would dare attack us here. Jake stepped forward and began studying the tactical display with professional interest. His brown eyes tracked the movement patterns of the enemy ships, analyzing their formation and likely attack strategies. This was what he had been trained. For his entire adult life, they're not random raiders, Jake said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. Look at their formation. They're cutting off hyperspace jump points and establishing overlapping fields of fire. Someone taught them galactic military tactics. Lisa moved to stand beside him, her green eyes also focused on the display. Those energy signatures match what we detected at the destroyed worlds. These are the same attackers. The Robotic Nexus Collective representative Kexanala processed the data with mechanical efficiency. Confirmed. Energy patterns match previous attack signatures by 97% probability. Threat assessment indicates extreme danger to all station personnel. As if responding to their analysis, the unknown ships began launching smaller craft toward the station. Hundreds of dark objects streamed from the larger vessels, like insects pouring from a disturbed hive. The smaller ships moved with unnatural speed and agility. Defensive systems activating, announced the control center. The station's automated defenses came online, sending streams of energy weapons toward the approaching attackers. But there, weapons seemed to have little effect on the strange vessels. The first
should
wave
be able
of
to fix it on
attackers
my own
reached
in
the
a
station's
second.
outer defenses. Explosions bloomed
Iron
across
in
the
a stick or
station's
something,
hull
right?
as enemy weapons tore through protective barriers that were supposed to stop any known weapon. The entire structure shook violently,
Iron and a stick.
sending several council members tumbling from their seats. Representative Murtakota of the Thalassans sang a high, frightened song from inside her water suit. The melody spoke of death approaching from me. Dark between stars, her people's musical language captured the terror that many felt, could not express. Jake was already moving toward the chamber's communication panel. His military training had taken complete control of his actions. I need to contact my ship immediately, he told Speaker Vexhari. The communication systems are jammed, Vexhari replied, his yellow eyes wide with fear. Not all of them, Jake, said grimly. He activated an emergency communication device from his uniform. Military channels use different frequencies. Defiant. This is Morrison. Do you copy? A burst of static answered him. Then a clear voice came through. Captain, this. Is Commander Ryan on the Defiant? We're tracking multiple hostile contacts approaching the station, requesting immediate orders. Prepare for combat operations. Jake ordered
I did have
without
some already.
hesitation. Coordinate with Commander Hayes' ship. We need to protect the station and evacuate. Non-combat personnel. Lisa was already activating her own communication.
There we go.
device.
That's going to be helpful.
Liberty, this is Hayes. Begin emergency protocols and prepare for full military engagement. The council members watched in amazement as the two humans transformed before their eyes. Gone was the frustrated anger they had shown during the political arguments. Now they moved with deadly efficiency, speaking in clipped military phrases. In coordinating defensive strategies, another massive explosion rocked the station. The lights flickered and several systems went offline. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in a dim red glow that made the chamber look like a scene from a nightmare. The outer defense grid is failing, reported the control
Let me
center.
get 50 right on.
Enemy
How much
forces
do I
are
need for
beginning
this?
boarding operations on decks 7 through 12. Jake turned
50
to
right
address
on,
the
that's good.
terrified council members. We need to evacuate everyone to the central core areas. Those sections have the strongest
This is
armor
about to get better
and best
already.
defensive
That's
positions.
hilarious.
You cannot give orders here, Ambassador Thelenex protested. Weakly, This is galactic territory under Council authority. The Council authority won't matter if we're all dead, Lisa snapped back. She had moved to a secondary control panel and was accessing the station's defensive systems.
The heavy hands.
These attackers don't
Mr.
care about
Heavy
your diplomatic
Hands.
immunity, Speaker Vexhari looked around at his fellow representatives. Most were cowering in their seats or trying to hide behind furniture. The careful dignity of galactic politics had completely collapsed in the face of real danger. What do you need us to do? He asked. The humans. Stay together and follow our instructions, Jake replied. We're going to move you to a secure area while our ships engage the main threat. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the battle unfolding in space around them.
Oh, I forgot to turn this on,
The
didn't
two
I? Yep.
human vessels, small compared to the attacking fleet, darted between. The larger enemy ships, like angry wasps, their weapons blazed continuously as they tried to draw fire away from the station. But the enemy had more ships and superior technology. The human vessels were taking heavy damage, their hulls scarred by alien weapons that cut through their armor like paper. It was clear they could not win a direct fight against such overwhelming odds. Your ships are too small, observed the Etherean. Representative, her quiet voice barely audible over the sound of explosions. They cannot defeat so many enemies. They're not trying to win, Lisa explained as she worked at the control panel. They're buying us time to evacuate and sending a distress signal to the human fleet. Human fleet? Representative Lecter clicked his mandibles nervously. You have more ships. Jake smiled grimly as he helped organize the evacuation. You didn't think we'd send just 2 ships to investigate something this dangerous, did you? The rest of our task force has been waiting at the edge of the system. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. A dozen human warships dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge.
We are
and began
waiting
moving
now.
toward the battle at maximum speed. These ships were larger than Jake and Lisa's vessels, built for serious combat rather than diplomatic missions. The attacking aliens seemed surprised by the arrival of reinforcements. Their formation wavered for a moment as they adjusted to the new threat. But they quickly regrouped and began moving to intercept the approaching human fleet. Evacuation routes are being established, announced the control center. All non-essential. Personnel should proceed to emergency shelters immediately. The council members began moving toward the exits, guided by station security and the 2 human officers. Many of them were still in shock at how quickly their safe diplomatic world had turned into a war zone. As they moved through the corridors, the sounds of battle echoed around them. Enemy forces had breached the station's hull in several places, and were fighting their way deeper into the structure. The station's security forces were putting up fierce resistance, but they were not trained for this kind of assault. Jake stopped at a security checkpoint and grabbed several weapons from a storage locker. Can any of you fight? He asked the council members. Most of them stared at him in horror. The approaching
In horror, they
just
say,
around the
in
corner from where
horror.
Jake and Lisa waited with the terrified council members. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the sound of movement. Everyone held their breath, waiting to see what kind of enemy they would face. Then the attackers came into view, and several council members gasped in horror. The creatures were nightmares made real. They stood on 4 spider-like legs, but had humanoid torsos covered in dark, chitinous armor. Multiple arms ended in razor-sharp claws, while their heads were elongated skulls with rows of gleaming teeth.
Coffee donuts.
Red eyes glowed with cold intelligence as they scanned the corridor. Devoured.
We are good to go now. Let's
Recognizing the
see.
species from intelligence reports. The galaxy's oldest fear. We thought they were just legends. The lead creature made a sound like grinding metal mixed with insect clicks. Other devourers spread out behind it, moving with the coordinated precision of a hive mind. They had found the evacuating council members and were preparing to attack. Jake raised his weapon and fired
We
it
are
out.
good to go.
Hesitation. The
Nah,
energy
dang
beam
it, I need to
struck
figure
the
out
lead
if
devourer in the chest, sending it staggering backward. But instead of falling, the creature's armor simply absorbed most of the impact. It turned those burning red eyes toward Jake and made a sound that might have been laughter. Conventional weapons aren't very effective, Jake muttered as he continued firing. We need to find a weakness. Lisa joined the fight, her shots more carefully aimed at joints and exposed areas. The Nexus Collective representative, Kexanala, added his firepower to theirs. The robot's combat programming made his shots precise and deadly. But even his advanced targeting system struggled against the Devourers' adaptive armor. The battle in the corridor was fierce but brief. The three defenders managed to drive the attackers back, but more Devourers were already approaching from other directions. The station was being overrun by these ancient enemies of all life. "We need to reach the communication center," Lisa said as she checked her weapon's power levels. "If we can get a message out about what we're facing, the human fleet can adjust their tactics." Speaker Vexari, who had been cowering behind a barricade, looked up with desperate hope. "The main communication array is 3 levels up. Root is crawling with those creatures." Jake looked at the terrified aliens around him. Most were completely helpless in this situation.
There we go, that should be
Their
enough.
peaceful civilization had not prepared them for this kind of violence. But they were still his responsibility now. "Kexanala, can you lead the evacuation to the secure areas?" Jake asked the robot. "Affirmative." "This unit can protect non-combat personnel while you complete the mission," Kexanala replied. The sound of weapons fire echoed from nearby corridors of the station. Security forces fought desperate battles against the invaders. The human fleet was engaged in a massive space battle outside, but the fighting inside the station would determine who survived. Jake and Lisa began making their way toward the communication center, moving through corridors filled with the sounds of battle. They encountered several groups of Devourers along the way, each fight teaching them more about their enemy's capabilities. The creatures were incredibly tough and seemed to learn from each encounter. Their armor adapted to the weapons being used against them, becoming more resistant with each shot. But they also had weaknesses. Rapid fire could overwhelm their adaptation, and targeting their joints could disable their mobility. "They're using some kind of reactive armor technology," Lisa observed as they took cover from another group of attackers. "But it needs time to adjust to new threats." "Then we don't give them time," Jake replied grimly. They reached the communication center to find it partially destroyed by the initial attack. Several technicians lay dead at their stations, but the main transmitter was still functional. Lisa quickly began working on the equipment, while Jake watched for more attackers. "Human fleet, this is Commander Hayes." Lisa spoke into the transmitter. "We have confirmed the attackers as Devourers. Pete, we are facing the Devourer hive mind. Adjust all tactical plans accordingly." The response came from Admiral Kevin Stone, the commander of the Human Task Force. "Copy that, Hayes. We're seeing coordinated attacks unlike anything in our databases. These things are learning from our tactics in real time. Through the communication center's windows,
Every time,
they could
man.
see the space battle raging outside. The human fleet was holding its own, but barely. The Devourer ships seemed to anticipate every move, adapting their strategies as quickly as the humans could change theirs. "Admiral, the Devourers feed on other species to grow stronger," Lisa reported. "They're not just trying to destroy us. They want to consume everyone on this station to fuel their expansion." "Understood. We're adjusting our approach. Hold your position as long as possible." Jake moved to another console and began accessing the station's internal systems. "If we can't stop them from boarding, maybe we can make it harder for them to move around inside." He began sealing blast doors and rerouting power systems to create choke points where the defenders could make stands. His military engineering training helped him turn the station itself into a weapon against the invaders. Meanwhile, in the secure areas where the council members had taken shelter, an amazing transformation was taking place. The representatives who had been cowering in fear just hours before were beginning to work together in ways as they never had during peaceful times. Representative Zilthera of the Zephyrians was using her crystal body's natural energy projection to power emergency medical equipment. The Thalassian representative Murdo Coda was using her people's sonic abilities to disrupt Devourer communication signals. Even Ambassador Thalanex was helping coordinate supply distribution to defenders. Throughout the station, perhaps Thalanex admitted quietly to Speaker Vexhari, "We misjudged the humans. They could have abandoned us when we accused them of being a threat. Instead, they stayed to fight for us." The battle reached its climax when a massive Devourer command creature breached the communication center. This one was larger than the others, with more sophisticated armor and weapons. It moved with the intelligence of a battlefield commander rather than a simple soldier. Jake and Lisa found themselves face to face with what was essentially a Devourer general. The creature studied them with those burning red eyes, as if recognizing them as the leaders of the resistance. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect galactic standard language. Deathworlders, it said in a voice like grinding stone. Your species interests us. You fight well for prey animals. You last so you can watch your friends die first. Big mistake, Jake replied, raising his weapon. You just made this personal. The fight that followed was unlike anything either human had experienced. The Devourer commander was fast, strong, and incredibly intelligent. It adapted to their tactics almost instantly, forcing them to constantly change their approach. But Jake and Lisa had advantages that the creature did not expect. Their Deathworld origins had taught them to fight dirty when necessary. They used the environment against their enemy, collapsing sections of ceiling and redirecting power conduits to create improvised weapons. The turning point came when Lisa managed to overload the station's communication array, sending a massive electromagnetic pulse through the local area. The pulse disrupted the Devourer's armor systems just long enough for Jake to land a critical shot. As the command creature fell, something unexpected happened throughout the station. Began moving erratically, their coordinated attacks becoming confused and disorganized. The loss of their commander had disrupted their hive mind connection. Taking advantage of the confusion, the human fleet pressed their attack in space while the station's defenders rallied for a final push. The combination of superior human tactics and the disrupted Devourer coordination turned the tide of battle. Within hours, the last of the attackers had been destroyed or driven off. The station was saved, though heavily damaged. More importantly, the galaxy now knew that the ancient threat of the Devourers had returned. In the aftermath of the battle, the council chamber was filled once again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. The representatives looked at Jake and Lisa with respect instead of fear. They had seen what Deathworlders could do when faced with real monsters.
There we go.
Speaker Vexhari stood to address the assembly. The council owes these humans a debt that cannot be repaid. They risked their lives to protect us, even after we questioned their motives and integrity. Ambassador Thelenex stood as well, his earlier hostility replaced by genuine remorse. I formally apologize for my accusations. It is clear now that we need humanity's strength to face the threats that exist in the dark between stars. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Defense Council, with Jake appointed as the first human military advisor. Lisa became the official human ambassador, a position that would help coordinate the coming war against the Devers. As the ceremony concluded,
He
Jake and
means
Lisa
the
stood together looking
Devourers.
out at the stars through the repaired windows. They had come to warn of a threat, been accused of being that threat themselves, and ended up proving that sometimes the galaxy needed its monsters to protect it from worse things. Think they'll remember this lesson when the next crisis comes? Lisa asked. Jake smiled grimly.
There we go.
First days at the Galactic Academy always left me anxious. Not because I lacked confidence in my abilities, quite the contrary. As a Viridian, I possessed natural physical advantages that most species could only dream of. More arms, enhanced vision, and a neurological system that processed combat scenarios 3 times faster than the galactic average. No, my anxiety stemmed from having to interact with the bizarre collection of species that somehow qualified for advanced combat training. Attention, cadets. Form your circles according to your assigned combat groups. Professor Zarlox announced, his booming voice echoing through the massive training arena. I glanced down at my holo badge. Group 7. Fantastic. I scanned the arena, spotting a small gathering beneath a floating 7 marker. This should be interesting, I muttered, making my way toward my assigned group. There were 6 of us total. A Krell with its armored exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. A pair of Jigzari twins with their characteristic violet skin. The bulky Dorvian whose muscles seemed to pulse with each breath. And wait, was that a human? I blinked, certain I had made a mistake. What was a human doing in advanced combat training? Their species came from a medium-gravity world with no natural defenses. No claws, no enhanced senses, no secondary limbs, and just soft,
Right back, guys.
fragile creatures who somehow managed to join the Galactic Federation through diplomacy rather than any impressive physical traits. Yet there she sat, a small human female, cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed as if meditating. She had copper-colored fur. No, they called it hair on her head, and wore the standard training uniform that somehow looked 2 sizes too large on her small frame. Greetings, fellow combatants. The Dorvian's voice boomed with unnecessary volume. I am Grux. I have won 17 planetary championships in unarmed combat. The Krell clicked its mandibles together. Tekka. Specialist in exoskeletal offensive techniques. The Jigzari twins spoke in unsettling unison. We are Pim and Pom. Synchronized neural combat is our specialty.
We got this.
Then all eyes turned to me. Corvic, I said simply. Viridian combat specialist. Finally, we all looked at the human, who had yet to open her eyes. Hello? Grux prodded. Your designation and specialties, human. Slowly, she opened her eyes. They were a strange blue-green color that reminded me of the ocean worlds in the Caspian sector. Jamie Fletcher, she said quietly. Earth, no specialty. I couldn't help the snort that escaped me. No specialty? Then why are you in advanced combat? Jamie shrugged, a casual human gesture I had observed before. I qualified. Before I could respond, Professor Zarlox approached our group. A Traxian War veteran with scars covering half his face, Zarlox commanded respect from even the most arrogant cadets. Group 7, he growled, his 8 eyes scanning each of us critically. An interesting mix. We will begin with basic assessment. Corvic, you are up first. Demonstrate your primary combat stance. I stepped forward, spreading my forearms in the traditional Viridian combat position, lower limbs for stability and upper for striking. I allowed a small surge of pride as I noticed several cadets from other groups watching with obvious admiration. Acceptable, Zarlox commented, which from him was high praise. Grux, you are next. One by one, we demonstrated our fighting stances. The Krell's was particularly impressive, its entire exoskeleton reconfiguring into offensive mode. The Jigzari twins moved with hypnotic synchronicity. When it came to Jamie's turn, she simply stood up. Just stood there. No stance, no preparation. Nothing. Is this a joke? Zarlox demanded, his voice dripping with disdain. Human, this is advanced combat training, not basic orientation. Show me your stance. Jamie looked directly at Zarlox. This is my stance, Professor. Laughter erupted from nearby groups. Even our group couldn't contain their amusement. I felt almost embarrassed for her. Very well, Zarlox said, his voice dangerously low. If you insist on making a mockery of my class, perhaps a practical demonstration is in order. He turned to our group. Who volunteers to spar with the human? Grux's hand shot up immediately. I volunteer, Professor. I will be gentle with the Earth creature. More laughter. Jamie didn't react at all. She just stood there, looking almost bored. Fine, Zarlox said. Basic sparring rules apply. The first to yield or become incapacitated loses. Begin when ready. The other groups had now stopped their activities to watch. Nothing drew a crowd quite like an obvious mismatch. Grux towered over Jamie, his massive frame at least 3 times her size. He grinned, displaying rows of sharpened teeth. Don't worry, little human. I will only bruise you a little. Whenever you are ready, Jamie said quietly. Grux laughed. I like your confidence. But confidence without skill is just stupidity. He began circling her, moving with surprising grace for someone so large. Last chance to assume a proper stance. Jamie remained still, just watching him with those ocean-colored eyes. Your funeral, Grux shrugged, then launched forward with impressive speed. What happened next defied explanation. Grux never touched her. One moment he was lunging forward, the next he was flat on his back, gasping for air. Jamie hadn't appeared to move at all. Silence fell over the entire training arena. What just happened? Tekka clicked, mandibles twitching in confusion. Jamie looked down at Grux. Do you yield? Grux struggled to sit up, confusion evident on his face. I don't understand. I didn't even see you move. Do you yield? She repeated, still in that quiet, almost gentle voice. Yes. I yield, Grux stammered. Professor Zarlox pushed through our group, his 8 eyes wide with disbelief. Slow yourself, human. Jamie turned to him. You asked me to demonstrate my stance. I did. You then arranged a sparring match. I participated. What needs explaining? You didn't move. I blurted out, unable to contain myself. How did you defeat him without moving? A small smile appeared on Jamie's face. Who said I didn't move? Zarlox's expression shifted from disbelief to intense curiosity. And again he commanded. But this time he looked around the arena, then pointed at me. Korvik, you will spar with her. My heart skipped a beat. Professor I. Now, Korvik. I swallowed hard and stepped forward. 4 arms, enhanced vision, superior neurological processing. I reminded myself of my advantages as I faced the small human. Don't worry, Jamie said softly, so only I could hear. I won't hurt you. Something about her tone sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't threatening, quite the opposite. She sounded genuinely concerned about my welfare, which was somehow more terrifying than any threat. Begin, Zarlox ordered. Unlike Grux, I didn't immediately attack. I circled Jamie carefully, analyzing her posture, searching for weaknesses. There was something odd about her breathing pattern, too controlled, too deliberate. Interesting, she commented. Most opponents attack immediately. I'm not most opponents, I replied, still circling. No, she agreed. You are not. I decided on a feint, a common Viridian technique. I moved as if to strike with my upper right arm while actually preparing to sweep with both lower limbs. It was a move that had won me countless matches. I never completed it. One moment I was initiating my attack, the next I was staring at the ceiling, all 4 arms pinned painfully behind me, with Jamie's knee resting lightly on my chest. What in the name of the 7 moons? I gasped. Gasped. Do you yield? Jamie asked, her face now inches from mine. Up close, I could see tiny golden flecks in her oceanic eyes. How did you? Do you yield, Korvik? She repeated, applying the slightest additional pressure to my arms. I yield, I exclaimed, feeling a mixture of shock, humiliation, and fascination. She released me immediately and offered her hand, a human gesture of assistance. After a moment's hesitation, I took it, allowing her to help me up with surprising strength. The entire arena had gone deathly quiet. Even Professor Zarlox seemed at a loss for words. Would anyone else like to try? Jamie asked, looking around our group. Tekka and the Jigsari twins quickly shook their heads. Professor, I said, finding my voice, what exactly is her specialty? Zarlox cleared his throat. According to her application, gravitational adaptation combat. Gravitational what? Grux asked, having finally regained his composure. Humans come from a death world. Zarlox explained slowly, as if just remembering this fact. Earth has approximately 1.5 times the gravity of our standard.
1 second.
They have evolved under constant pressure. So she's strong, Tekka clicked dismissively. Many species have strength advantages. It's not just strength, Jamie interjected. its efficiency of movement. Explain, Zarlox demanded, no longer sounding dismissive but genuinely curious. Jamie looked around at all of us. Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a high-gravity world with remarkably diverse and dangerous fauna. We don't have natural weapons like claws or enhanced senses like some species. What we have is endurance and adaptability. That doesn't explain how you defeated 2 opponents without appearing to move, I pointed out. I did move, she corrected. I moved exactly as much as needed, not a millimeter more. When you grow up on a world that constantly tries to pull you down, you learn not to waste energy. Impossible, Grux muttered. No one has reflexes that fast. Jamie shrugged. It's not about speed. It's about anticipation. Your species broadcasts your intentions through micro-expressions, weight shifts, pupil dilation. To me, it's like you are announcing your moves before
Back,
you make
guys. My wife
them. A
had some
wave
news
of
for me. That's all.
unease passed through the group. The idea that this small, seemingly defenseless creature could read our biological signals so accurately was disturbing. And Earth trained you in this technique? Zarlox asked.
Ooh.
Not exactly, Jamie replied. It's a combination of several Earth martial arts focused on using an opponent's energy against them, plus environmental adaptation training for space travel. Why would a medium gravity species need adaptation training? Tekka asked. Ist. Jamie's expression changed slightly. Was that amusement? Because Earth isn't actually medium gravity by galactic standards. It's classified as a high-gravity death world. Class 12. Gasps echoed around the arena. Class 12 death worlds were rare. Planets with extreme gravity, atmospheric toxicity, and aggressive ecosystems. Most spacefaring species came from Class 3 to 6 worlds. That's impossible, I said. Humans don't have the physiological characteristics of Deathworlders. Don't we? Jamie asked, turning those unsettling eyes on me. What do you think these are for? She held up her hands, wiggling her 5 fingers. Manipulation of tools, I answered automatically. Yes, but why 5 digits with such complex joints? Why omnidirectional shoulder sockets? Why bipedal locomotion with rotational hip joints?
Ooh.
She took a step toward me, and I found myself taking an involuntary step back. We are built to adapt, Korvik. To climb, to throw, to manipulate our environment with precision. We evolved on a world where being clever was just as important as being strong. Professor Zarlox seemed to have recovered his composure. Enough theory. Practical demonstration is the purpose of this class. He looked around the arena. Rakar. Bring your group over. My heart sank. Rakar was a Zenthi warrior, the Academy's top-ranked combatant 3 years running. His species possessed natural armor and regenerative capabilities that made them legendary on the battlefield. Rakar sauntered over, his scaled skin glistening under the lights. You called, Professor? Spar with the human, Zarlox instructed, pointing at Jamie. Rakar looked Jamie up and down, then laughed. Is this a joke? I could break her in half, Try, Zarlox said simply. Jamie had resumed her non-stance, standing casually as if waiting for public transport rather than preparing for combat with one of the most dangerous fighters in the Academy. Your funeral, little Deathworlder, Rakahar sneered, using the term like an insult. Jamie just smiled. We will see. Rakar didn't waste time with preliminaries. He attacked immediately, his massive form charging toward Jamie with frightening speed. She didn't move until the last possible second. Then, with a motion so fluid it was almost beautiful, she shifted slightly to the side, grabbed Rakar's outstretched arm, and used his own momentum to send him flying across the training mat. Rakar recovered quickly, spinning to face her with a snarl. Lucky move. Was it? Jamie asked. This time Rakar approached more cautiously, circling Jamie as I had done. She tracked him with her eyes, but otherwise remained still. He struck with his tail, a move famous for its unpredictability. Somehow Jamie caught it mid-swing, twisted, and Rakahar found himself flat on his stomach, arm and tail pinned behind him at what looked like a very painful angle. Yield, Jamie said. Not a question this time. Never, Rakar growled, struggling against her hold. Jamie applied slightly more pressure. I heard a distinct cracking sound. Your scales are impressive, Jamie commented conversationally, but your joints have the same vulnerabilities as most vertebrate species. Yield now, or I dislocate your shoulder and fracture your third tail vertebra. The clinical precision of her threat was somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. I yield, Rakar gasped. Jamie released him immediately and stepped back, resuming her casual stance as if nothing had happened. Professor Zarlox looked at Jamie with new eyes. Where did you learn to identify anatomical weaknesses across species? Earth has over 8 million species of animal life, Jamie replied. Comparative xenobiology is a standard course for anyone interested in off-world careers. I found myself staring at this human with a mixture of fear and fascination. Everything I thought I knew about their species needed reevaluation. Class dismissed, Zarlox announced suddenly. Except you, Fletcher. I want to speak with you privately. As the groups began to disperse, I lingered, watching Jamie approach the professor. Their conversation was too quiet to overhear, but I could see Zarlox's expression shift from skepticism to something approaching respect. Terrifying, isn't she? A voice said beside me. It was Tekka, the Krell. She's certainly unexpected, I replied carefully. I have heard stories about humans, Tekka clicked, mandibles twitching nervously. How they survived multiple extinction-level events on their homeworld. How they continued space exploration after losing entire crews to exiles. Their persistence is unnatural. I watched as Jamie nodded at something Zarlox said, then turned to leave the arena. As she walked past our group, she gave a small nod of acknowledgement. See you tomorrow, she said, with that same small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes.
I don't have a bedroll there anymore. Oh
After she
no!
left, the arena
Well.
erupted in conversation.
Easy come, easy go.
Did you see how she took down Raka'ar? She knew exactly where to apply pressure. I heard humans can survive with half their blood volume. They can regrow damaged organs. They intentionally poison themselves for recreation. The rumors grew more outlandish with each passing minute. I tuned them out, my mind replaying the fights I had witnessed. Something didn't add up. I'm going to the library, I announced to no one in particular, then headed for the exit. I needed to learn more about humans, about Earth. Because one thing was becoming increasingly clear, we had severely underestimated this species. And Jamie Fletcher was just the beginning. The Academy Library was eerily quiet as I hunched over the holographic display, scrolling through information about Earth. Most of what I found was standard interspecies protocol documents, trade agreements, and tourist advisories. Nothing that explained how a small human female could effortlessly dismantle the Academy's top fighters. Computer, access xenobiology files on humans. Authorization, Korvik, Combat Cadet, Level 3. The display flickered, then populated with new data. What I saw made my forearms tense involuntarily. That can't be right, I muttered, leaning closer. According to the files, humans had evolved on a planet with not only high gravity but also extreme temperature variations, atmospheric toxins, and countless predators.
Ooh, this is nice.
Most bizarrely, they possessed redundant organs, a skeleton made of regenerating calcium structures, and a circulatory system that could rapidly self-seal wounds. Looking for answers? A voice asked from behind me. I spun around to find Jamie standing there, holding a physical book, an archaic Earth information storage method. How long have you been there? I demanded, feeling oddly guilty, as if caught doing something shameful.
This is cool.
Long enough, she
man.
replied, taking a seat across
I
from
just
me.
want this.
Finding anything interesting? I gestured
No,
at
this
the
one right
display.
here.
According to this, humans can survive losing entire limbs. Temporarily, yes, she confirmed casually, though we prefer to keep all our parts attached. And you can ingest substances that would kill most species. She nodded. What you call toxins, we call breakfast beverages. Caffeine, theobromine, various alcohols. You poison yourselves for pleasure, for functionality, mostly she corrected, placing her book on the table. Her nervous systems often require chemical stimulation to achieve optimal performance. I leaned back, studying her with new interest. Why didn't you tell us you were from a Class 12 death world? Jamie's mouth quirked up at one corner. You didn't ask. Besides, we are classified as Class 9 in official Galactic Federation documents. A deliberate misclassification? A political compromise, she replied. When Earth joined the Federation, many species were uncomfortable with our physiological capabilities. Downplaying our environmental challenges help ease diplomatic relations. That's deceptive, I pointed out. That's diplomacy, she countered. Would you have treated me differently if you'd known? I hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Probably. But only because it would have been relevant tactical information. Exactly, Jamie said, tapping her fingers on the book cover. Humans learned early in our interstellar relations that other species respond to us with either fear or dismissal. Neither is conducive to productive cooperation. Before I could respond, my comm unit buzzed. A message from Professor Zarlok's Emergency Combat Assembly. All cadets report immediately. Did you get that too? I asked Jamie. She nodded, already standing. Let's go. We hurried through the academy corridors, joining streams of other cadets flowing toward the main combat arena. The usual chatter was absent, replaced by tense whispers and concerned glances. Any idea what's happening?
I see.
I asked the passing Traxian. Something about an external challenge, they replied without slowing.
Pray.
When we reached the arena, the scene was drastically different from our previous class. The training mats had been replaced by a single, circular platform surrounded by energy barriers. The academy officials occupied the upper
We got this,
observation
guys. We
deck,
got this.
along with several beings I didn't recognize visitors in elaborate diplomatic attire. Attention, cadets. Professor Zarlok's voice boomed through the space. Today we have unexpected guests. Representatives from the Crixian Empire have requested a demonstration of our combat training methods. Murmurs rippled through the assembled cadets. The Crixian Empire was not part of the Galactic Federation. They were a militaristic society known for aggressive expansion and disdain for what they called lesser species. The Crixians have proposed a simple challenge. Zarlok's continued. Their junior war champion against our top combat student. All eyes turned to Rakar, who straightened his shoulders, expecting to be named. Based on yesterday's performance, Zarlok's announced our representative will be Cadet Fletcher. The arena erupted in shocked whispers. Rakar's face contorted in disbelief and fury. This is an outrage, he hissed. One lucky bout doesn't make her our champion. Zarlok's fixed him with a cold stare. Your objection is noted, Cadet Rakar, and dismissed. Jamie stepped forward, her face betraying no emotion. What are the terms of the challenge, Professor? Single combat, no weapons. Victory by submission or incapacitation, Zarlok's required.
Ooh, she's gonna get him.
The
Get him, girl.
representative
Get him!
will be Junior War Champion Drox. From the diplomatic section, a massive figure rose and vaulted over the railing, landing on the platform with earth-shaking force. The Crixian stood at least 7 feet tall, with gray-green scaled skin and multiple ridges of bone protecting vital areas. 4 yellow eyes surveyed the cadets with obvious contempt.
Whoa!
This? Drox's voice rasped through translator implants. This is
We
your
got this,
champion.
guys.
He pointed a clawed finger at Jamie. The soft pink creature barely looked sturdy enough to serve
Get my
as a
stuff,
meal,
put it back.
let alone a worthy opponent. Several Academy officials shifted uncomfortably, but Zarlok's remained impassive. Cadet Fletcher, do you accept the challenge? Jamie nodded once, sharply. I accept. As she made her way to the platform, I found myself moving through the crowd to intercept her. Are you insane? I whispered urgently when I reached her. Crixians have exoskeletal reinforcement under their scales. Their bone density is 3 times galactic standard. Jamie
She
gave
doesn't
me an
have to worry
odd
then.
look. Are you concerned for me, Korvik? I'm concerned for the diplomatic incident when he crushes you into human paste, I retorted, though something in her calm demeanor made me wonder if my concern was misplaced. She placed a hand briefly on my upper left arm. Watch closely. You might learn something. Then she walked onto the platform to face Drox. The size difference was almost comical. The Crixian towered over her, his massive form casting her in shadow. Combat parameters accepted, announced an automated voice. Match begins in 10 seconds.
Oh.
Drox dropped into a combat stance, his body language screaming aggression and confidence. Jamie stood casually, arms at her sides, much as she had in our class demonstration. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, commence. Drox moved with surprising speed for his size, covering the distance between them in a blur of motion. His clawed hand swept toward Jamie's head in what would have been a devastating blow. It never connected. Jamie ducked under the strike with millimeters to spare, then stepped inside his guard. Her movement was so precise, so economical, that it almost appeared choreographed. She placed one hand on Drox's extended arm and another on his torso, then simply redirected his momentum. The result was spectacular. Drox's massive body flipped completely over, crashing onto the platform with bone-jarring force. Before he could recover, Jamie had somehow maneuvered behind him, applying pressure to what I recognized as neural junction points on a Crixian. Drox roared in fury, attempting to throw her off. But Jamie moved with him, adjusting her position with each movement, remaining perfectly balanced while increasing pressure on his vulnerable points. Impossible. Someone whispered nearby. She's countering Crixian battle rage response patterns. Submit, Jamie said quietly, applying additional pressure that made Drox's yellow eyes bulge. Never. He snarled, though his struggles were weakening. Crixians do not yield to prey species. Your choice, Jamie replied, her voice still eerily calm. But you should know that I'm currently compressing your secondary cardiovascular node. In approximately 30 seconds, you will lose consciousness. In 2 minutes, permanent neural damage begins. The clinical precision of her analysis chilled me to the core. This wasn't bravado, it was a medical assessment delivered with absolute certainty. Drox must have sensed it too. His struggles became desperate, then gradually subsided. I yield, he finally gasped, the words clearly painful to utter. Jamie released him immediately and stepped back, maintaining her ready stance until the automated system announced match concluded. Victory by submission to Federation cadet. The arena remained silent for 3 heartbeats, then erupted in chaotic noise. Academy cadets cheered wildly, while the Crixian diplomats conferred in agitated whispers. Drox remained on the platform, his expression a mixture of disbelief and humiliation. Jamie extended her hand to him, the same gesture she'd offered me after our bout. For a moment I thought Drox would attack her again. Instead, he stared at her hand, then slowly, reluctantly, took it and allowed her to help him up. How? He demanded, loud enough for nearby cadets to hear. You are half my size with no natural weapons. You have impressive physical advantages, Jamie acknowledged. But you rely on them too heavily. Your technique sacrifices efficiency for intimidation. Drox's ridge scales flattened a sign of thoughtfulness in Crixians. You fight like no prey species I have encountered. That's because humans aren't prey, Jamie replied simply. We are apex predators who learned cooperation was more effective than competition. The Crixian studied her for a long moment, then inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect that stunned the watching diplomats. Professor Zarlox dismissed the assembly shortly after, but instructed our combat group to remain behind. Once the arena had cleared, he addressed us with unusual intensity. What you witnessed today goes beyond a simple training exercise, he said. The Crixian challenge was a test not just of our combat training, but of the Federation's military readiness. They were scouting our capabilities. Tekka clicked, mandibles twitching nervously. Precisely, Zarlox confirmed. And thanks to Cadet Fletcher, they have received an unexpected message about those capabilities. Jamie had remained silent since the match ended, but now she spoke up. They will be back. and next time they will be prepared for human combat techniques. Which is exactly why we need to accelerate your training, Zarlox replied. All of you. The Crixians respect strength above all else. Today we showed them strength they didn't expect, but it won't be enough to maintain deterrence. So what happens now? Asked Grux, unusually subdued after witnessing Jamie's performance against Drox. Now, said Zarlox, Cadet Fletcher will help train all of you in human combat principles. Jamie looked surprised for the first time since I'd met her. Professor, I'm not qualified as an instructor. Your demonstration suggests otherwise, Zarlox countered. And we need every advantage we can get. Wait a minute, I interjected. You are telling us the fate of Federation-Crixian relations now rests on combat classes? Zarlox fixed all 8 eyes on me. Diplomacy between predator species is always underpinned by mutual respect of capabilities, Cadet Korvik. Today's demonstration earned us time. What we do with that time determines what comes next. After Zarlox departed, our group gathered around Jamie, all previous skepticism replaced by eager curiosity. How do you identify weak points so quickly? Tekka asked. Can you teach us that joint lock technique? The Jixari twins inquired simultaneously. Even Grux seemed impressed. Your leverage application defies conventional mass ratio predictions. Jamie held up her hands. One question at a time. And before we start, you should understand something important. Human combat techniques aren't about being stronger or faster. They are about being smarter with the strength and speed you already have. Elaborate, I requested, genuinely curious now. Jamie glanced around, then pointed to a training dummy. Korvik, use all 4 arms to strike that dummy with maximum force. I complied, unleashing a powerful 4-armed combination that made the reinforced dummy rock on its base. Good, Jamie said. Now I will do the same. She approached the dummy, positioned herself carefully, then struck with a single focused blow. The dummy didn't just rock, it flew backward, tearing free from its anchoring and crashing into the wall. We stared in stunned silence. How did you generate that much force? I finally asked. Kinetic chaining, she explained. Earth's gravity taught humans to use our entire body in sequence feet, legs, hips, core, shoulders, arms, hands, and each link in the chain adds force to the next. But your mass is insufficient to Grux began. Mass is just one factor, Jamie interrupted. Velocity and structural alignment matter more. That's why I kept telling you all efficiency of movement is our specialty. For the next hour, Jamie demonstrated basic principles of human combat techniques. Even with my enhanced neurological processing, I struggled to grasp the subtle biomechanical concepts she described so casually. It wasn't just about striking or grappling, it was an entirely different approach to physical conflict. Humans developed thousands of combat systems over our history, she explained as we practiced. Most evolved independently in different regions of Earth, yet many arrived at similar principles. Why so many systems? Asked Pim, or possibly Pom. I still couldn't tell the Jixari twins apart. Because humans spent most of our history fighting each other, Jamie replied with surprising candor. Before we unified and joined the stars, we nearly destroyed ourselves countless times. That revelation sent a chill through the group. I found myself reevaluating everything I thought I knew about humanity. Is that why the Federation classified your world as Class 9 instead of Class 12? I asked quietly. Not just your physical capabilities, but your aggressive tendencies. Jamie met my gaze directly. Partly. But you are missing something important, Korvik. The same traits that made us dangerous to ourselves make us valuable as allies. How so? Tekka inquired. Because when humans commit to protecting something, Jamie said, we bring every adaptation from our death world to bear. Our redundant organs, our pain tolerance, our pattern recognition, our tool use, our endurance, everything that helped us survive Earth gets repurposed. To what end? I asked. Jamie's expression softened slightly, to ensure that those we consider under our protection never experience what we did. the constant struggle, the fear, the need to fight simply to exist. The training session continued, but my mind kept returning to that statement. I began to understand why the Crixian War champion had shown respect to Jamie after his defeat. He had recognized something fundamental about humans that the rest of us had missed. They weren't just death warriors. They were guardians who had emerged from their deadly cradle with both the capacity for terrible violence and the determination to prevent it when possible. As our session ended and we prepared to leave, I approached Jamie one last time. That first day, I said, when you defeated me without seeming to move. You could have embarrassed me as thoroughly as you did Rakar, but you didn't. Why? Jamie considered me with those ocean-colored eyes. Because I recognized something in you, Korvik. Curiosity. Adaptability. The willingness to question your assumptions. Traits you value, traits that helped humans survive. She corrected. The ability to learn, to change perspectives, those matter more than physical strength in the long run. She extended her hand, that curious human gesture again. This time I took it without hesitation, feeling the surprising strength in her grip. Will the Crixians really return? I asked. Jamie nodded solemnly. They will, but next time they won't just face me. She looked around at our combat group, who were still practicing the techniques she'd shown them. They will face all of us, working together. And that's something even Deathworlders fear, cooperation between species who understand each other's strengths. As I watched her walk away, I realized the true lesson of the quiet human girl who'd defeated champions without seeming to move. The most dangerous adaptation wasn't claws or armor or venom, it was understanding that together, the different species could become something greater than the sum of their evolutionary advantages. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was why humans had been allowed to join the Galactic Federation despite their Deathworld origins. Not because they had hidden their nature, but because enough wise beings had recognized what I was only beginning to understand. Sometimes the best guardians are those who have faced the worst dangers and survived. Sometimes the quietest warriors are the ones you should fear most. And sometimes a small human woman sitting silently in combat class is exactly what a diverse galactic community needs to remind everyone that appearances can be the most deceiving adaptation of all. Commander Vex Tora slithered across the bridge of the Dominion flagship, the Annihilator, his 7 eyes scanning the tactical display with smug satisfaction. The human outpost on Proxima B looked pathetically small against the backdrop of our massive fleet. 50 warships against one tiny outpost. This would be the easiest conquest in the glorious history of the Zelaxian Empire. Status report, I demanded, adjusting my ceremonial medals. As First Lieutenant Krasnov, I had the honor of documenting this historic moment for our Emperor. The human outpost has minimal defenses, sir. Our scans show only 32 humans present. Their weaponry is primitive, replied Science Officer Plexmara, her tentacles flickering with amusement. They haven't even detected our approach yet. The bridge crew erupted in laughter. Humans. The galaxy's newest spacefaring species, barely a century into interstellar travel, and already trying to establish outposts in our territory. The audacity, the foolishness. Commander Vex Tora raised a scaled appendage for silence. Let's not underestimate them. Remember what happened to the Grok Star fleet last solar cycle. A hushed silence fell over the bridge. Nobody liked to talk about the Grok Star incident, an entire battle group destroyed by a single human vessel. But that was different, we assured ourselves. That was in deep space. This was a stationary outpost with nowhere to run. Commence the attack, Commander Vex Tora ordered. Standard annihilation protocol. The first wave of our fighters descended upon the human outpost like hungry predators. I watched from my console, already drafting the victory announcement in my mind. The words, swift and merciless, featured prominently. Sir. Communications Officer Zalther suddenly shouted, his voice cracking with confusion. The humans are responding. Of course they are responding, Commander Vextora snapped. They are being attacked. No, sir. I mean, they are sending us a message. Audio only. Oh. The commander flicked his tail impatiently. Put it through. A voice filled our bridge, speaking in perfect Zelaxian, which was surprising enough.
Oh!
But it was the tone that froze my blood. Casual. Almost bored. Hey there, big
Got my
scary
butt
alien
headed to be there,
armada.
guys.
This is Jake. Just Jake. No fancy title because, well, Earth bureaucracy is worse than any alien invasion. Anyway, I see you have brought 50 ships to attack our little science outpost. That seems a bit excessive. Doesn't it? Like bringing a nuclear warhead to a pillow fight. The bridge crew exchanged bewildered glances. Who was this, just Jake? And why did he sound so unconcerned? You have 10 minutes to surrender before we obliterate your outpost, Commander Vextora replied, trying to regain control of the situation. Yeah, about that, the human replied, and I swear I could hear him yawning. I'm actually in the middle of my coffee break, so that doesn't really work for me. How about you turn those fancy ships around, and we will pretend this never happened. Commander Vextora's scales flushed purple with rage. Insolent human. Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? Let me guess. Big bad commander of a species that thinks size and numbers mean everything? Got a name that sounds like someone sneezed while saying it? Vex something? The commander nearly choked. How do you know my name? Oh, I don't, Jake replied cheerfully. Just playing the odds. You guys really need to get more creative with your naming conventions. Anyway, my coffee's getting cold, so I will make this quick. You have two options, leave now or deal with me. And trust me, none of you want to deal with me before I have finished my coffee. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, Weapons Officer Dreknar finally spoke. The first wave of fighters has reached the target. They are beginning their attack run. Commander Vextora shook off his confusion. Excellent. Let's see how brave this just Jake is when his home is reduced to ash. We watched on the view screen as our fighters circled the human outpost, unleashing a barrage of plasma torpedoes. The outpost's shields flared blue, absorbing the initial impacts, but they wouldn't last long against our firepower. This won't take long, I remarked to Science Officer Plexmara. She nodded, but there was an uneasiness in her
What?
conscience. Human knew the commander's name. How is that possible? Before I could respond, Weapons Officer Dreknar cried out in alarm. Sir, we have lost contact with Strike Group Alpha. What? Commander Vextora whirled around. How? Unknown, sir? They just disappeared. On the tactical display, 6 red dots representing our
Maybe I'll take
fighters
this
had
from
vanished
his
without
armor
a
from him.
trace. No distress signals, no explosion markers, just gone. Launched the second wave.
Come on,
Commander
dude.
Vextora ordered, his voice tight, and scanned for defenses. Yes, sir. Science Officer Plexmara bent over her console, her tentacles flying across the controls. No cloak to defenses detected, sir. But I am picking up something strange. There's a human life sign outside the outpost. Outside? In space? I asked, incredulously. No, Lieutenant. On the surface. About half a kilometer from the outpost.
Die, outsider!
They killed him!
Another transmission came through. That same infuriating human voice. So, I put down my coffee to take a little stroll. And what do I see? Some very expensive-looking alien fighters blowing up. Tragic, really. All those flight school hours wasted. By the way, your second wave is about to have a really bad day. As if on cue, alarms blared across our bridge. Strike Group Beta reports they are being targeted by ground-based weapons. Dreknar shouted. They can't evade. We have lost 3 more fighters. On the view screen, I watched in horror as our fighters exploded one after another, struck by pinpoint laser fire from the planet's surface. Where are those shots coming from? Commander Vextora demanded, pounding his command console.
Well,
with a
dang, now I
scaled
was like,
fist. Science Officer Plex
I don't
Mara
dare
looked up,
try and
her
wreck
eyes
this
wide
guy.
with disbelief. The human life sign, sir. Inside the outpost. He's using a handheld weapon. Impossible. No handheld weapon could target and destroy spacecraft in orbit. And yet we all watched as another fighter erupted in flames, debris scattering across Proxima B's thin atmosphere. Sir, Communications Officer Zalther interrupted. We are being hailed again. Put it through, Commander Vex Tora hissed. Hey, it's me again, came that maddeningly casual voice. Look, not to be rude, but these fighters of yours are cluttering up my nice view. I'm trying to enjoy the scenery while I finish my coffee, you know? How are you doing this? Commander Vex Tora demanded. Doing what? Jake asked innocently. Oh, you mean shooting down your fighters? It's nothing special. Just a little toy I have been working on. Unfortunately for you, today was the test day. No human technology is capable of this, I interjected. Well, aren't you the expert on human technology? Lieutenant, I'm going to guess. Kraz something? I felt my blood freeze. How did he know my rank? My name? Name. Tell you what, Jake continued. Since you seem like a curious bunch, I will give you a demonstration of what else this toy can do. Look at your nearest moon. Despite myself, I glanced at the view screen, where Proxima B's small moon was visible in the background. There was a flash of light from the planet's surface, so quick I almost missed it. Then, to our collective horror, a massive chunk of the moon simply vanished, vaporized. A perfect circular hole, at least 10 kilometers in diameter, had been carved through the celestial body. The bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouting, screens flashing warnings, Commander Vex Tora bellowing for silence. That's not possible, Science Officer Plex Mara whispered beside me, her tentacles trembling. The energy requirements alone would be. Impressive, right? Jake's voice cut through the pandemonium. Imagine what that would do to one of your big ships. Or, hey, I don't know, maybe all 50 of them at once. Commander Vex Tora regained his composure with visible effort. You are bluffing. That weapon can't possibly target multiple ships simultaneously. Want to bet? Actually, I should warn you, I'm really good at poker too. Another human game you guys should look into before trying to invade us again. Sir, weapons off.
Not into that story. I'm sorry, guys.
First, they took your family and your riches. Then they took your health and your pride. Finally, they left you to die. What will you do?
Guess I can't do anything about that. I don't know what to watch. Or not watch, but listen to. I'm gonna have to shut this down and redo it, ain't I? Yep. Look at that later. Do 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 do. It looks like I'm not getting in, so I'm gonna have to shut it down, restart it, do it all over again. Steam power confirmed.
First, they took your family and your riches. Then they took your health and your pride. Finally, they left you to die. What will you do, exile? when there is nothing left but to live or die.
Why is this not working? What the heck? We got this team. That's my baby girl one thing. Play. Ah! It's like coming at Conan, boy. I don't even know how long I've been streaming for, but check.
First, they took your family and your riches. Then they took your health and your pride.
Dusk is playing.
Finally, they left you to die. What will you do, exile, when there is nothing left but to live or die?
Alright, I gotta see how long I've been going for. If I've been going for a while, maybe I'll raid out. Oh, 2 hours. Maybe I'll play Fortnite. Welcome back. That's what she says. I didn't click off instantly. That's funny. Good old Dusk. Consistently inconsistent. Poor Dusk. Oh, it did it again, huh? I hate it when it does this. That'd be hilarious. I get in. Dusk is offline. Okay. Okay, I'm done with this game for now. I just can't get into the server, which kind of sucks. Alright, I think that's it for me today, guys. I might be back on later after we go eat and do all the stuff. Alright, guys. Until next time, God bless y'all. Y'all take care. Have a great day. And as always, stay awesome.